I will be look in the chat because there will be a registration. And so I would like for you to use this opportunity to just fill out the registration. It's important for us. I'm seeing some returning faces. Right, so I'm seeing some returning faces. That's amazing. So just check in the chat for me. There's a link for you to register. So if you'll be so kind to register. Additionally, once I get back on, I'm going to ask those of us who can to turn on our cameras. We want to see you. We want to feel you. So be back shortly, and just check in the chat for the link to register. Thank you so much. Thank you to those who are just joining us. Good afternoon to you. We're doing some due diligence in making sure that all our presenters have sharing rights and our able admin is able to, reach out to all of you. Just a gentle reminder that you can check in the chat for the link to register. Again, we want to welcome all of you home and abroad. I'm seeing some people who are in different time zones here. And so I want to say thank you and welcome. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start. If you will check in the chat at 3:08, Miss Nataki Topping had sent a link for you to complete your registration. So if you haven't done so, please do so. This information is important. All right, so in my sojourn as the speech and literary arts specialist, I've come across two wonderful women, but many wonderful women, but these are very special ladies. And before I continue, I would just like to officially start with a word of prayer. So, started this yesterday and I'm going to do it again. I think it's a good prayer. Yeah. So if you will bear with me, here we go. Heavenly Father, we are grateful for life, for inspiration, for love, for another year. A year that is filled with possibilities, opportunities, and promise. As we start the second in the series of our workshop for Creative Writing 2022, we ask that you not only love us, inspire us, but write peace, prosperity, and promise in our hearts for all that you have done, continue to do, and promise to do. We give you praise, give you all the thanks. Amen. You know, technical glitches, it happened even in prayer. You know, those things go, right? So we have a special gentleman on here, and I'm going to ask him because prior to now, and that is Mr. David M. He has an amazing voice. I hope he has an amazing microphone. I'm going to ask Mr. David M. to read, I think, one of the poems that were suggested by our able facilitators. And I'll share that with you shortly. So just to let you know that the creative writing competition was designed with unearthing and showcasing the penmanship of the Jamaican public. We've had some interest from persons who are overseas. As it relates to your entry, the rules are as follows. If you are a Jamaican, home and abroad, go right ahead. And we do know that people can become Jamaican by marriage and passports and all those wonderful things. So yes, go ahead. And also, it says that if you are residing in Jamaica, then you can enter, at least for 2 years. And that is across all the competition. So if you're an American or a non-Jamaican rather, then you can enter the competition once you have been residing in the country for the last 2 years. So once again, it's here to unearth the great writers. I'm seeing one of our prolific writer who has just joined us, Mr. Michael Record, and I'm very happy to see so many wonderful people popping up. So for this series, what we intend to do is to use it as a stimulant for your pen to write, to get into it. We hope that you will learn something. You will share many things with us, and that throughout the entire process, we both are developing throughout this series. We started yesterday, and it was very interesting for me personally, where we learned the aspects of the novel writing, and the facilitator yesterday, Dr. Tomlinson, made it absolutely clear that the novel is more than just a plot. Wonderful. So today we continue that tradition with the poetry aspect of it. Interesting fact is that the poetry category within the literary arts competition, creative writing competition, is the most supported. And I will offer a hint or something like that to say that my first entry into JCDC was poetry, not written, but spoken. And I didn't enter after that because I didn't go anywhere. But here I am at the helm of things. Anyways, so today we're looking at breaking down poetry and the barriers and offering you some tips, but I won't tell you the objective of the workshops. I'll allow the presenters to do that. Just general rules, ladies and gentlemen. We expect you to be courteous at all times, be open-minded to different perspectives. We're encouraging you to be actively participating, and you may do so by turning on your cameras. We'll see you. Clearly, if you're not in a space to do so, we understand too. But whenever there are time for the presenters, that facilitators, sorry, that ask you to share, please do. We encourage you to document your experiences and the nuggets that are going to be shared with you today. Unhelpful, negative comments are not tolerated. And then you said, but how is negative comment helpful at all? That's another story. You can check me back next week on time here. Continuing, due to the limited time constraint, the workshop facilitators may not be able to address all your concerns, but we strive towards answering as many of your questions as possible. Participants are encouraged to be open-minded, open communication. The workshop sessions are to be held, to be used as empowerment, not as a tutorial. But hey, these two ladies, as I've told you in my preamble, are amazing women. And you know, the funny thing is, they asked me, said, Damien, what am I going to tell you to tell people? And I will just say this. Both are doctors of literature. They can correct me there. But at present, Dr. Janet Williams is a lecturer at the Shortwood Teachers College, and Dr. Carol Hunter-Clark is living her best life. She's no longer in the classroom, but of course, you know, once a teacher, always a teacher. And I have come to appreciate their involvement in the competition. Both are senior adjudicators in the poetry category. As a matter of fact, when I assumed the post of literary and speech specialist, and I met them, they said, we have our thing going. Our poetry team is solid, so we don't want you to break us up. And I have come to understand why. Outside of their academic achievements and prowess and their aptitude and willingness to continue writers and teachers and inspire literary genius, they are women who love their family. They're family women, and they spend a great deal of time with their family, and have, I dare say, brought me into their family. But enough of that, ladies and gentlemen. The two ladies that I speak of, and I've mentioned their names before, your facilitators for today, ladies and gentlemen, are Dr. Carol Hunter-Clark and Dr. Janet Williams. Please let them feel welcome. Clap if you can. Put your hand up in the air, kind of, you know, thing. So I just want to welcome all of you across the length and breadth of Jamaica and across the globe. And thank you for returning. I see some hands going up. Javar Duncan, Santos, I see you. Bent, wonderful. So again, welcome, welcome, welcome. And at this point, I turn over to the respective ladies, Dr. Carol Hunter-Clark and Dr. Janet Williams.
Good afternoon, all. Miss Janet, we need you here because you should be sharing the screen. Sister Janet?
She's here.
Okay. Welcome, welcome. Today is the poetry workshop, and as Janet will tell you and endorse, this is a workshop. It is not the kind of space where you can turn off your camera, keep your audio on, and then you go all about your cooking and you're going to tile it and all of those things. No, we want you to be engaged because you will not want to miss a moment. Miss Janet, anything you want to say before we move into the first slide?
Yes, just to thank you all for coming, and we hope that you will find the experience fruitful. And just like performers on a stage, we both are nervous like anybody else.
I'm not, am I here? I'm not hearing.
We're hearing her a little bit, just a little bit.
All right.
She says that she's nervous like all of us.
Okay. I don't know if she needs to adjust the audio or something.
All right. I have, any better? Any better?
Before we do before we go to the objectives, Janet, we might want to start with the warm up. What do you think?
Yes, sure. All right. Sure, Carol.
Lady Janet, you're having challenges with your audio. We're not hearing you clearly. There are comments in the chat that says you're pretty low, and that is true. So if you could sort that out, that would be.
While Janet is working on that, we could begin the warm-up activity. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you are prepared to write something, because poetry is all about writing. So I want you to get out of your comfort zone and see how you can reconstruct yourself or construct yourself. And the task is on the slide. You are to select an animal, a four-footed one, so we don't want people here, or a bird.
Oh, sorry, the slide has been minimized. It's very small.
So she needs, let me read
Lady
for you
Janet,
while Janet works on that. It says,
yes.
Self-construction. How do I see? All right, that's manageable now, Janet. I think we can see that. You're to select an animal or a bird that you think might fit your personality or your disposition. And then you have to say why you have made that selection. And then the final step, which is what we want to hear about, because we'll be sharing that, write a line about this animal or this bird. So it really is an activity that speaks to identity, because you need to know who you are as a writer, for instance. We're giving you 5 minutes to do that. So whether you want to jot it down, type it down, however you write, and then I'm going to depend on Damien to identify some persons to read what they have done, because this is going to be important. You'll see the importance of that later on. So 5 minutes starting now. Who am I?
I don't know who am I.
Yes, Lady Malcolm. So you're saying that you don't want any 2-foot ones, like.
I don't want any 2-footed one.
Okay.
4.
Self-construction. How do I see myself? How do others see me? Select an animal, 4-footed ones, or a bird that fits your personality, and say why you have made that selection. Write a line about this animal or bird. Those who are not seeing.
Is there anybody who is not seeing though?
Malachi has answered in the chat.
If?
Malachi has answered in the chat.
Good. But if he has written that line already, let him write another one. Because
That's
we're
right.
giving, it's a 5-minute activity. We'd love to hear what he has though.
Lady Janet Williams, could you please maximize it, like perhaps start the slideshow? I would
Okay.
say.
Yes, she might
This
have
is-
to go into slideshow. Damien, do you want to help her off air?
Okay, sure.
If she goes into
First, can you
slideshow,
hear me? All right, I'm in an adjustment here. Can you hear me? Is that any better?
Yes, a
Damien.
lot better.
all
A
right.
lot better. Okay. All right.
And you're sounding a little louder. If you could go a few decibels more, that would be fine.
Okay. All right. We'll try. Is there an improvement?
A little, just a tad.
All right. I am to the maximum here.
Mhm.
Hearing you.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Much
So
improved?
a minute more, just a minute more.
Can't go anymore. Okay.
All right. So we are going to be hearing from you. And even if you post it in the chat, we want to hear what you have. Poetry is also about hearing. We want to hear, first of all, why you've made that selection, and then we want to listen to that line that you have written. So Damien, do you want to identify a few persons for us?
Absolutely, just a second.
That gentleman who was first out of the blocks, we might want to start with him. Yeah, that's it. All right, so. Yes, Damien.
Sir
if you could
Malachi, Sir
identify
Malachi
that.
Smith.
Mhm.
Do you want to go ahead, Mr. Smith, and share with us?
I'm sure.
All right.
So, greetings, first of all.
Greetings.
A cat, I say cats don't like lizards, and so do I. I love the chase too, stalk a prey and jump or leap to snatch it. Move without sound, the elements of surprise is priceless for me.
All right, so you have chosen a cat.
Yes.
I noticed you didn't say puss. Because you know, you have denotative meaning and connotative, so you're a cat.
Hold
Right.
on, Carol.
That's
Carol and James.
interesting. And you are
Right.
looking at, you are constructing that in terms of predator and prey,
Yes.
and that is all right. How do people react to that kind of persona, do you think?
They find it interesting and intriguing,
All right.
and especially in the chase.
All right. Okay. All right. Hold that, because I want you to keep that metaphor in mind. Thank you. Could we get another one? So we had a cat.
Absolutely, we have Tiox, whose hand is up.
Yes.
I know that's not her name for sure.
That sounds like a tigress.
Yes.
Let us hear you.
Hi,
Yes.
Tiger. Yeah.
Yes.
So of course, obvious what my animal was going to be, right? Tiger. My fur is beautiful. You may wish to touch. The strength of my spirit, my roar can be much. The outside approachable, but inside deep and wild.
All right. So we are seeing dimensions to your persona. There's depth. What kind of aura do you give off in that persona of the tiger? What is it that comes across, you think?
Confidence.
confidence. Anything else?
Well, I like how the tiger moves. I like to see how the tiger moves. It's beautiful. And the fur and the,
So
the
that
way the
grace
patterns on it is
and
beautiful.
the stealth.
Yes.
All right. Hold that. We're coming back to it later on. Yes, Damien, anybody else who wishes
Yes,
to?
Lady Patricia Reed War.
Yes, ma'am. Could we hear your animal or bird?
Okay. Well, mine is a dog.
I know
And
you didn't say dog, right? It's dog.
no, it's a dog.
Is
And
that Jamaican dog or dog?
a dog.
A dog. Well, it's an in-between. All right, let us hear the dog. Not quite dog, but dog. Yes.
It has a lot of bark. Can be very noisy. But sometimes you just see it just lie down quietly in quiet reflection. So it's really to depict that there are different moods to me. I am multidimensional.
Where's your bite? You're barking. Where's the bite?
Pardon?
I'm saying I'm hearing the bark. What about the bite? Or
Right.
is that part not seen?
Right. Oh, okay.
No, I'm just probing.
I'm barking, but I'm not gonna bite you.
Okay, all right.
He hasn't been fed as yet.
Right. So the line.
Close enough. If you come close enough. Or could we get about 3 more and then we I just want to get you.
I wanted to give you my line. Can I give you my line?
Yes, please.
It says, "Look at me. I am more bark than bite. A gentle giant. That's me."
Wow. So I preempted. Okay, great. All right, thank you. It's raining where I am, so please forgive me if I'm not hearing too well. When you live in bush, this is what happens. Yes.
You're getting all the wonderful
Amen.
things.
Could
A
we
gentle
get another?
reminder for those who are on here that you are to register, and we've been sending that registration link to you. I'm just reading some of the chat. Jeanette Campbell, a groundhog, solitary now and hibernating like the groundhog. My line, still shivering in the COVID cave.
So it's a groundhog.
Yes.
So this is a creature, it's not a creature that we know in Jamaica, do we?
No.
Now, that's fine. But there are other features and characteristics about this animal. Groundhog Day, the idea
yes,
of
I've yeah.
repetition, deja vu. All right, hold that one. We're coming back to it. Another one, Damien.
Janet Williams says tiger sensitive and passionate. Surprise fact, a punch from a tiger could kill you. All right, there are some hands up, and I'm just going to take those hands. Jason Tomlinson.
2 more, and then we'll have to wrap this up because we have lots of stuff to do, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Jason,
over to you.
Good afternoon. I chose a bear mainly because they're kind of protective of their family, specifically their cubs, and I am in that way when I see people in my life who are protective of them.
Hearing.
Oh, sorry. Are you hearing me clearly now?
I was hearing,
Hello?
but I don't know. She's not hearing. Are you hearing me, Dr. Clark?
Yes, I'm hearing you a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. He said he's a bear because they're protective of family and their cubs, and he's like that.
Okay. All right. I noticed that people can be intimidated because of the size, and people might have misconceptions about bears too, because they are seen as dangerous. So there's that side, the danger side, but there's also the protective side. Thank you.
All right, the last.
Can I see my line?
Oh, his line. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, yes, we didn't get the line. No.
Oh, big, brown, and beautiful and inescapable from its great embrace.
That's a sentence.
Really? I was kind of working that. Oh, well.
Big, brown, and beautiful.
Okay.
Inescapable from its great embrace.
Inescapable from its great embrace. Big, brown, and
boss.
beautiful, inescapable from its great embrace.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hold those thoughts because we're going to be coming back to what we have started here. I noticed though, and maybe the others might have written about them, I didn't hear anything about Janko. I didn't hear any bird, at eagle.
Somebody
chicken,
said eagle in the
brown
chat.
dove,
Suzette Bent says eagle.
chicken.
I was going to say I was a drunk crow.
You were?
But I couldn't.
Tell
Yeah, I
us.
couldn't. I put donkey.
You're a drunko. No, no, I did. Oh, Damien, I didn't mean it like that. No. But there are quite a few poems about crows actually, and how graceful they are. You know?
You notice you went to crows?
Yes, there are quite a few crow poems. All right. So this really, ladies and gentlemen, is to get you started and to get you, I know some of you are writers, and I know that some of you I hope that all of you are thinking of participating in the competition. It's important and we want a very good quality this year. I know that over the years, you know, we've been improving and we want to continue to improve. So I'm going to ask Janet now to do the formal side in terms of what we hope to expect from this workshop in terms of our objectives, you know. So Janet, over to you.
Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just read as Ms. Janet microphone gets back on. The objective of this workshop, participants will be able to, 1, identify their skills in writing poetry, 2, evaluate the effectiveness of their poem, 3, edit their own poems in order to improve their output.
All right. So since we're having some challenges with Janet's audio, and Damien was kind enough to read for us, these are pretty much what we hope to accomplish. So that is really it. We're going to move to the next slide, really is a continuation of what getting started. And based on what we just did with the animal bird imagery, I want us to consider, look at the 6 things that we have mounted, and I want us to be able now to say a few things. We'll be calling on a few of you. Again, Damien, I'm going to ask you to identify some for us, especially those who didn't participate in the first part with the self-construction. So we want to just get from you your ideas about writing and how you see yourself as a writer and the challenges you might have. What are the triggers? What do you write about? What will cause you to write?
Hey, Carol
So,
and everybody.
Just take a minute to look, and you can choose any of the 6, anyone to talk about. You don't have to.
All right.
Do
Abby?
I'm doing 2 things.
Janet?
Yes, I'm doing 2 things. I'm using my phone for the audio, which I had before, and then I'm using the computer now, the laptop now for the slides.
Okay.
That is better.
Are you able to hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, great.
And if you could turn up the audio on the phone, that would, maybe it's my side
on the
and
phone.
you.
All right, we're gonna do that.
No, don't touch the audio on the phone. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. So we are on slide 5, I think it is, because what I was hoping is on slide share to have it alongside so Carl could see where we need to come in. All right. So where we are concentrating or getting you started. Why do you write?
Getting started. So I was asking.
Why do I write? Why are you writing any at all? I am sure that you don't get up out of your bed any night and say, oh God, I'm going to write something here. Writing demands of you that you think about your writing. What is it that triggers your writing? What is it that causes you, inspires you, and may I dare say at times force you to get out of bed those odd hours to write whatever it is. I'm going to be saying the poetry now, whatever it is. And when you write, having written now, what do you want to be read? What about the writing that you wrote that you want now to be read? Who reads it? And why should others want to read it? Why should others gravitate to what you have written? And if it's something that is to be heard, why should they listen to what you have to say? Why should they listen to what you have to say, be it verbal or nonverbal? And when I talk about nonverbal now, back on paper. It is said that everything that's out there is valid and becomes valuable when it is in black and white. But when it is read, what is it people hear? What is it others see? What is it they feel and smell and taste and are able to touch in the writing that you wrote, that they heard being read, and when they have to go back now to read that which you wrote? What does that look and feel like? And then having considered all of that now, what are the challenges that you would have faced and you're now going to face in writing? I know in particular when people are writing the novel and research papers and all of that, sometimes they say it is a writer's block that they have and they can't progress to the next level. In writing the poetry, you're writing out of an inspiration. And sometimes you might be able to finish it at the time when you start to write, or you may pause a little, and or you have to go back to edit to ensure that which you write is exactly what you want to be read. And that which you write or wrote, that's exactly what you want to be heard. You see how everything is intertwined there? So it's all very important. How is it you get started? And what is it you put out there now having written? Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, all right. All right, so we continue. So we look at, here goes now, trying to decide now what exactly is this poem or what exactly is this poetry? And of course, there are many perceptions about the poetry here or poem. So as we know it in terms of the literary part of it, it's a piece of writing, whatever form that writing is. And it, not just form, whatever shape, that poetic shape that poem is. The group of words that you have organized in a way that your ideas, your message, your feeling really are communicated. And communicated in what kind of mood, in what kind of tone, what kind of intensity. And then looking at that which you write in terms of the poetic form, or what is being heard of that which you wrote, then you're investigating now. You're looking at it in terms of now that form which has specific patterns or lack thereof, and rhythm or lack thereof. Because yes, there is rhythm in terms of what has been written, but the rhythm is more so captured in when it is being articulated, when it is being verbalized, then the rhythm more or less is caught. It can be seen on paper, mind you. However, now the poem is that sensory experience, you'll agree with me, that somehow ought to capture now the sounds of what's out there, the images that you have in your mind that you want them to see, the picture of your ideas, how you shape those ideas for them to have maybe a better understanding. And I think readily about children in particular who just like poetry, they gravitate to where they see illustrations or something pictorial. They tend to want to gravitate toward that. And of course, what is it, your sensory experience? How is that communicated now to your reader? And I dare say your listener. And then we're going to go back to a little video clip in a session, but give me a moment to move forward. How do you organize now that piece of writing? How do you organize those ideas? How do you organize those sensory images explained verbally on paper? How do you organize those lines or phrases? Be it the standard stanzas that you have them laid out in, or you maybe have it structured like looking like a sonnet, or might be free verse, what it is. Because the content that you have, or that which you want to share based on how you see it and feel it and hear it and smell it and taste it in your being, that's exactly how you want to communicate it on paper. so that when it is seen on paper and when it is read, be it silently read or you hear it verbally, as if having someone reading it for you, having someone performing for you, you want them to communicate exactly that which you had in mind when you were inspired to put your ideas down on paper. So the next slide, and I'm going to ask Carl to take it there, because one of your popular Jamaican artists and writers poetry, and he gives a perspective on the poem. And here goes.
And we want you to listen, and then we'll talk.
Yes, go ahead. Can you hear?
Please do ensure that when you're sharing your screen, you're also sharing your sound. Okay, we're hearing, but it's pretty low.
All right, go again. Any better? Continue.
What if you put your microphone, their cell phone close to it?
All right, we go again.
Might need to play it from the original YouTube location.
Okay.
This poem is nice.
Okay. Can you find it for me?
Okay, I'll try to find it.
Yes. Just
the
find the YouTube link. Yeah.
absolutely, I'll look for it. But one of
the YouTube link.
the poem not going, the microphone option is not going to work because you're going to have feedback. So don't worry about it. I'll find it.
All right. So let us pause and wait. Let us pause and
Yes,
wait for you to find it then, Damien.
while we're waiting on the uploading of this poem, I just want you to think about what Janet just said in terms of poetry and definitions of poetry and your own thoughts and experiences as a budding poet, because Mutabaruka's rendition is supposed to challenge our perceptions about definitions of poetry.
This poem. Oh, okay. That's the poem. You can continue. I've found the link. I'm just going to.
Yes. Yeah, play it. Play it.
No,
please.
just a second. Just a second.
Oh.
Yes.
So we are really about definitions. What is poetry? What is poetry supposed to do? Is it a personal act? Is it a political act? Is it a communal thing? Is it just for me, for my own enjoyment? Is it therapy?
I have found the link, but I'm not hearing it.
Oh,
it's
Lord.
okay.
Oops.
Yeah, not hearing it.
Okay. All right.
We'll get back to that shortly. I apologize.
Okay.
All right. So we could probably move to the next slide.
Next slide, Abby.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Which really, yes, we hope that by the time we're done with, yes. And you'll see this is really
The Zoom
a word from us, Janet, myself, because we have been judging the poetry category for quite some time. And over the years, we have, you know, seen improvement, but there are also some areas that we do need to pay attention to. And one of the first things I think is the idea of audience. You'll notice that there are 3 categories: adult, intermediate, and junior. We have found over the years, every year, there's always some misalignment. Sometimes what we're seeing for junior is not really junior. What we're seeing for adult is not really adult. And sometimes I think we need to take into account, if, for example, I'm an adult and I'm writing for a junior audience, am I able to see the world through the eyes of a child? Am I able to have that kind of consciousness? Because sometimes, even though we see junior category, the content is far too advanced. It's just, children just don't think that way. The vocabulary is not there either. So there's this disconnect. And sometimes we have the opposite. What we see for adult really could go in maybe intermediate or even the junior. So you have to consider when you write, who am I writing for? And can I get into that particular psychological space and create that persona? And that is why we started out with your imagining yourself or putting yourself as an animal or a bird or something. Are you able to take something up out of yourself and put it out there and say, I am recreating or I am creating? So the matter of the audience is very, very important. Janet, you want to take the language part?
Okay. Okay. All right. If you can hear me.
That is why we started out. I'm here. Imagining yourself.
There is a feedback. There's a feedback in the background, an echo.
Something out of yourself and put it out there and say, I'm not hearing the echo, but if you want me to continue, I will.
Feedback in the background. I'm hearing multiple voices.
Janet, you want to take the language part?
No, I'm not speaking. Somebody that has their microphone open.
We started. Oh, that could be it. What I'm hearing from Mrs. Reed was that she's hearing
in the background.
They're hearing
An echo.
I don't know if it means they're hearing you or they're hearing the echo. I'm not hearing the echo, but if you want me to continue, I will.
Feedback in the background. I'm
The
hearing.
matter. Oh, you're hearing her. Great. So Janet, you're being
All
heard.
right. Sorry, I've just found the poem and I'm now sharing my screen. I've pinned it. I hope you can see my
Jump
screen.
right in, Damien. We can always return to this one.
The wretched sea that washed ships to these shores.
Can you hear?
This poem shall speak of the wretched sea that washed ships to these shores.
We're hearing you.
Of mothers crying for their young, swallowed up by the sea.
I'm neither.
This poem shall say nothing new. This poem shall speak of time, time unlimited, time undefined.
You're not sharing your screen.
This poem shall call.
All right,
have to
Dr.
share this
Janet, I've shared my screen. Dr. Williams,
Yes.
could you be so kind as to stop sharing your screen at the moment?
Okay.
Are we all seeing Damien's screen?
No. Well, even if we're hearing it, it's fine, Damien. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. You can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
This poem shall speak of the wretched sea that washed ships to these shores, of mothers crying for their young, swallowed up by the sea. This poem shall say nothing new. This poem shall speak of time, time unlimited, time undefined. This poem shall call names, names like Lumumba, Kenyatta, Nkrumah, Hannibal, Akhenaton, Malcolm, Garvey, Haile Selassie. This poem is vexed about apartheid, racism, fascism, the Ku Klux Klan, riots in Brixton, Atlanta, Jim Jones. This poem is revolting against first world, second world, third world, division, man-made decision. This poem is like all the rest. This poem will not be amongst great literary works, will not be recited by poetry enthusiasts. It will not be quoted by politicians or men of religions. This poem is knives, bombs, guns, blood, fire, blazing for freedom. Yes, this poem is a drum. Ashanti, Ma, Igbo, Yoruba, Nyabingi warriors, Yohuro, Namibia, Yohuro Soweto, Yohuro Africa. This poem will not change things. This poem needs to be changed. This poem is a rebirth of a people, a rising, awakening, understanding. This poem speaks, is speaking, have spoken. This poem shall continue even when poets have stopped writing. This poem shall survive, you, me. It shall linger in history, in your mind, in time, forever. This poem is time, only time will tell. This poem is still not written. This poem has no poet. This poem is just a part of the story. His story, her story, our story. The story is still untold. This poem is now ringing, talking, irritating, making you want to stop it. But this poem will not stop. This poem is long, cannot be short. This poem cannot be tamed, cannot be blamed. The story is still not told about this poem. This poem is old, new. This poem was copied from the Bible, your prayer book, Playboy magazines, the New York Times, Reader's Digest, the CIA files, the KGB files. This poem is no secret. This poem shall be called boring, stupid, senseless. This poem is watching you trying to make sense from this poem. This poem is messing up your brains, making you want to stop listening to this poem. But you shall not stop listening to this poem. You need to know what will be said next in this poem. This poem shall disappoint you because this poem is to be continued in your mind, 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 in your mind.
All right.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Damon.
Okay, next.
Mhm.
All
So-
right.
Mhm.
Go ahead. All right. So based on what you've heard so far, which really captures what we were talking about, the inspiration, the perspectives, the content in particular is where we were, and using word for effectiveness. And I like the part where he ends. It continues in your mind. The poem is not yet written. It's always in the mind until you put it on paper, until it is spoken, until it is read, until it is performed. I'm putting all of those elements in there. And at the same time, the content of this poem in terms of how you have used language and the grammar and the punctuation marks. Where is it in the poem you want your reader to pause? Of course, when it is being performed, you don't know where the pause is in terms of how the reader or the performer would have manipulated where those punctuation marks are, be it a full stop or a comma or ellipses or whatever those things that you're using there. So it's very, very important that you pay attention, having written the work or that you're writing it. What kind of punctuation marks are you putting in there to ensure that the message, the content carries forth the information that you really want to be communicated?
All right, Janet?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, all right, so we're continuing. So it's about the sensory appeal. And then we discovered in terms of sometimes the titles that you give, the titles somehow doesn't do anything. I mean, the titles you give sometimes to your work doesn't give any invitation, doesn't truly reflect what you're writing. It's just there for title's sake. I want you to consider that when you're doing your work, because when you see the title, before you even get into the content, before you even see it on paper, will that title that you have encourage someone to want to read your work or want to listen to your work? So the title and the way you express, and some people we found throughout the years are great users of the language, be it the Creole or standard English or something else, or mixed standard Jamaican English and something else, and they do very well at it. And others with some work would have been able to do so much better. So we're going to move on now to the next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So we talk about now, Carol, you're there? That's you? Birthing your ideas. How do you start? You're there in terms of your stimulus for your writing that you have, that you already have it in you in terms of your writing. Many people write out of an experience. Are you there, Carol? Persons write in terms of maybe an image that they would have seen, be it a natural or artificial one, and they would want to somehow speak something about it. As a matter of fact, as we're struggling to find out where we are in terms of trying the different devices, and I'm saying, who is going to write the first poem about the experience of today? the apprehension, the navigation, the response, the back and forth, that kind of a thing. So you write about an experience, but in writing out of the experience, are you able to capture in that writing the image of the idea? How do you get that out there? And of course, the words, do you have really long sentences, short sentences? Are there phrases, incomplete ideas? And sometimes I see people manipulating, maybe it's an experimentation, manipulating with short phrases. Sometimes they are connected and sometimes they aren't in the same poem, regardless of the shape it is in. What are the words that you're using there under the phrases? What genre it is that you want it to be? Is it going to be a narrative poem? Is it going to be a dub? Is it going to be a ballad? What is it you want? Which genre do you want to truly represent? And again, I mentioned this part of it before in terms of your voice now. What is it you're saying about the image? What is it you're saying about the experience? What is it about the genre? What is it you want them to leave with thinking? For those students in particular who are analyzing poetry at the CSEC, Cape level and long before you get there, and students that they don't like the poetry because it's too much analysis, they're seeking for the message. What is the message here? How has that been communicated? How effectively has the message been communicated into the content via the different literary devices? And we are going to look at that much later. And then we go on to know that you have conceptualized now, what is it you want to say? Your imaginative thinking is at work. It's really at its peak and getting there. How do you put that now on paper in terms of shape? And yes, shape, next slide. Shape is very important here, especially for the juniors and younger in terms of what you see. And I have there, everybody knows this one. What is it that shape does actually, right? It's totally different from prose, right? In that you want to reinforce the image of the idea that you have in mind. So we look at it, here goes, and you can read it right there for yourself. The cow jumped over the moon. And I hope right here that you're really, really seeing the moon. So how do you get it in shape? So you draw the shape of whatever it is that you have and that you want to be seen or understood. And then you write your thoughts because you actually are speaking about, be it a house, be it the moon, be it about a diamond, be it about an aeroplane. Let us look at another shape here, please.
And while you're doing that, Janet, I'm using my phone because I lost power for a minute and the computer is starting to reboot, and that's taking a little while.
Interesting times, my people. Interesting times, my people. We know not when, we know not how, we know not why. We do right, but we talk about interesting times, my people. That is not a poem from anywhere, please.
Well, it does sound poetic. And I like these pattern poems. Yes. So you're with the cow and the moon. Mm-hmm.
And the cow and the moon. So here goes now. Look at the next one that you're seeing, I hope. It's about an umbrella. We talk about the rain, and I read it very quickly. No more rain splashing on the window pane. In the main, I don't complain. The fact remains, the drains contain so much rain that they are strained. The weather vanes become inane. And when every day it rains, it's plain to see for you and me, it has to be the end of play. Now, here goes. I don't know if you're able to capture an umbrella anywhere outside of seeing it. But when you think of rain, and this one didn't really give a title for it. When you think of rain, one of the first things I think about staying inside. Another thinks about an umbrella. Another may think about a pair of galoshes. Another may think about inconvenience. Another may think about it's time to sleep. All kinds of things. So what is it the image captures? What is it? And I'd mentioned before, now, if you were to give it a theme, a title rather, what would that title actually be? Would that title truly reflect what is the essence of this poem? And yes, we see the shape and know that it's rain, and when it's raining, you require an umbrella. Now let us look at another shape, a shape of a poem, please. Next. All right, look at this one. What are you seeing there? And I can't hear you, but I think it's in the chat, which I can't access now.
Airplane.
I can.
Plane taken out.
Ah, an airplane taken out. How do we read this one? Can somebody attempt to do that for me, please?
That would be interesting. Which end are you starting from?
Starting from your left, the extreme left. Go, Andrew.
A click, a sputter, a whoosh to roar, a flick, a shudder, a push to soar. The noise held high, the wing steady. The plane is ready to touch the sky.
Oh, lovely. Applause. All right. Somebody else would want to try to see if we get a different interpretation as to how the different things work. Go ahead.
The arrangement of the words. That's interesting.
Yes. Somebody else want to try? Anybody else want to take it on? I'm looking for hands raised.
I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is your captain speaking.
Love it.
I love it. Your seatbelts.
Over to you, Captain. There was somebody attempting. Go ahead.
A sputter, a whoosh, a click to roar, a shudder, a push, a flick to soar. The wings steady, the nose held high. To touch the sky, the plane is ready.
I love it. I love it. As both read, oh, Sharon, you are the person that read it just a moment ago? Is that Sharon Derlo?
Yes, miss.
No.
I'm here.
Okay, you just read or you're raising your hand to read?
I'm raising my hand
Sharon
to
wants
read.
to read.
All right, go Sharon Derlo.
Yes. I like the different interpretations. Great.
Definitely. Go Sharon.
A click, a sputter, a whoosh to roar, a flick, a push, a shudder to soar. The nose held high, the wings steady. The plane is ready to touch the sky.
Okay, lovely. Everybody seemed to agree with the last term, the apex of the plane right there. All right, Patricia Ward, the last one we'll take and then move on. Patricia, lovely, lovely. Patricia.
Okay, yes. A click to roar, a sputter, a whoosh, a flick to soar, a shudder, a push. The nose held high, the wings steady, the plane is ready to touch the sky.
All right, interesting. So now you see different interpretations here in terms of what is to come first. What I find interesting that we are not sure where to start the reading of the
and that is wonderful. That is what poetry is about. There's no linear interpretation. A good poem opens up to many interpretations.
Definitely. I could see this poem being performed and the adjudicators of speech also would probably be struggling to say, how do we begin to assess this now? Because where exactly do we start? You know, but it's interesting. So we thought we'd share that with you. Next slide. And then we begin to explore the metaphors here of grabbing a fruit. Carol, go ahead.
Yes, so we are at this point where we continue with the notion of writing, and we want to zoom into a particular metaphor. We started out earlier with the animal imagery kind of thing. Now we have put a few fruits there, but that is not an exhaustive list at all. I want you to think of your writing as a fruit, or think of how you construct yourself as a fruit. I'm thinking of a pineapple, and I'll tell you why later. I want you now, just as how you had started with the animal imagery, I want you to take a minute or two and select a fruit that you feel epitomizes you, is a representation of you, and then write a line or two. Notice I was rhyming. You, two. All right. So grab a fruit, any fruit. I have taken pineapple. It doesn't mean that you can't take pineapple, and I'll share my pineapple one with you in a few.
Between me and you.
All right. So 2 minutes, grab a fruit.
As you grab your fruit, ladies and gentlemen, a gentle reminder that you should look in the chat for the registration. So it just sent in by Miss Nataki. There's a Google link. Please register. Thank you.
All right.
So I take it everybody has selected.
And then we want the line.
Yes.
We want the line.
And you have to write it now because we're going to be needing that so much later. Those 2 lines that you would have written,
Yes.
please.
And it doesn't have to be a tidy line, you know. It doesn't have to be something, because it's a work in progress. So it doesn't have to be smooth and polished, but we want you to capture the essence of that fruit. There must be a feature of that fruit in your line. All right.
So we count them down in 30 seconds, Carol.
Yes,
Damien,
please.
30 seconds.
And then we're going to depend on Sir Damien to identify.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I'm trying to get back in. Wait just a minute. Boy, I tell you, see.
All right. So we have 20 seconds, 19,
Good
18,
afternoon.
10,
17.
9.
Okay. All right,
This is
Damien.
your
We are there.
captain speaking.
I know, right?
Yes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Admitted. Lift off.
Yes.
You can share with us by indicating in the chat. You could just raise your hand or open your microphone. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay,
T-Gox.
Tiger. Seagox. Don't Tiger.
Oh, sorry. Tygox.
I know, right?
Go ahead, please.
Strawberry red, strawberry red, sweet and juicy. Flavor, scent, refreshing, intrusive.
Ooh, I love it.
Red and juicy.
Yes. Strawberry
All right.
red.
Lady Sharon, go on.
Thanks.
Okay, should I say the fruit that I chose?
No, just if you read it, we will get it.
Okay, ma'am. I
Uh-huh.
am calm and mellow with mind and soul that's always yellow. I radiate with the morning sun, and there is always so much fun.
That's so like mango.
Mango.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I
All
love it.
right.
I love it.
Thank
Lovely.
you.
Yes.
All right, another.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in the chat is saying they want to eat some Julie mango.
All right, we'll write about it. You remember Anansi at the magic pot? Work, let me see.
Yes.
Indeed.
Some,
All right.
Oops. There you go.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Malachi.
Once you see me, you want to come near. Once you smell, I scratch your throat, and once you taste, there's no divorce.
Scratch short, scratch.
Corona.
East Indian. East Indian.
Oh, East India. Yes, very sweet, truly. Yes. All right. But you have Patricia Reed War, and then we'll move on. Patricia.
Okay. Where is it? Okay. Tough enough, green enough, but not quite a belly full enough. Skinned enough, seeded enough, and filled with prickle enough.
Pineapple.
Oh,
Yes.
what's up enough?
Is that soursop?
So
No,
Pineapple?
no, and filled with prickle enough.
June plum.
June plum, June plum.
That sounds like
I
June
love it.
plum.
I
All
love
right.
it. Okay.
All right. I have one from off our shores,
Mhm.
and I'll read it. It's in the chat. It says, swelling with seed, instead of drying up in the sun, branded by their weight in magic marker. I reach out with both hands for that 20-pound baby with smooth green skin. I cradle my pick, hoping the red center is sweet, sweet.
Watermelon.
Weigh 20 pounds.
Watermelon.
Oh, that sounds. Santos, is that? Did we get it right?
That.
Yes, it's a watermelon.
Ah,
What fruit is that?
watermelon.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
Lovely, lovely. We
How could
really
I
have
miss
some.
that one?
Yeah, we
Anybody
really have
wants
some.
to hear mine?
Yeah, go ahead, Carol, and then we have to move. Mhm.
All right. Pounce on my blades and you bleed. But if you have patience, roll me the right way, this side to the sun, cut through the skin, sweetness within.
Wow.
Lovely. Pineapple.
Pineapple man.
Whoa.
Yes.
Yes. The participants, you're doing great. Your writing is fabulous. The images are clear, are sharp. Damien, we're going to have
could we
going
get
to
a
have
few,
some
Janet, you
lovely
think we could
pieces.
take a few more?
All right, 2 more, and then we have to move because we're not even halfway through yet.
Mhm.
Okay, just 2 more only.
All
Damien?
right.
Yes. By the way, Santos is from Belize.
Okay.
Oh, great, great.
Yes.
Welcome, Santos. Mhm.
No, I'm not getting, I mean, if you can open your mic and go ahead, but I'm not seeing anyone in the chat.
All right.
Right.
Duncan.
Yes. These bronze balls of sweetness are married to the heights.
Wow.
Tamarind.
Found.
No.
Tamarind.
No. A green skin star apple when it's well
Star
ripe.
apple, man, star apple. And they
Melissa
look good, you know, you have
Mackenzie.
to pick them.
Yes.
Mackenzie,
yes.
go ahead.
That's beautiful.
Lovely.
That's a lovely line.
Love.
Yes. So we take one more. We have a
Yes.
lot to cover, ladies and gentlemen. Whole heap of stuff to get through.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover. Yes, please.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Evening. I hope you can hear me because it's raining in my background.
Well, it's not, welcome to the club, darling. It's raining here too.
Okay, all right. I stare at you, stubborn, flaunting your distance. You will not be strong-armed into being. Did you hear?
That one.
We heard, just processing. Mhm.
I stare at you, stubborn, flaunting your distance. You will not be strong-armed into being.
I can only think of tamarind or sauce. Star apple.
Yes. Can I try star apple?
Star
Star
apple.
apple.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right, lovely. Great
Thank
writing, everybody. But we have to move it. All right. All right, we move to the next slide, please. Okay. Poems that rhyme.
All right.
Carol?
Yes. Well, over the years, we see participants, budding poets, you know, attempting to rhyme, and nothing is wrong with poems that rhyme. In fact, there are many, many forms that embrace rhyme. If you remember, well, going to school when they used to sing hymns, a lot of those hymns have some of the same, you know, form of whether rhyming couplets or alternate rhyme. I remember this this hymn, new every morning is the love, or waking and uprising prove, through sleep and darkness safely brought, restored to life and power and thought. We used to sing that, well, that dates me, you can know, well, how old I am, but you see the rhyming pattern, the A, B, B, you see the couplets there. Another hymn I remember singing, or God or help in ages past, or hope for years to come, or shelter from the stormy blast and our eternal home. Then you have the alternate rhyme with past, last, come, and home. So, you know, and many, many songs have this kind of form. And I know that quite a few of the writers use the quatrain, the 4-line stanza, which is fine. And quite a few of the ballads, especially some of the early ballads, the traditional ballads, they have that kind of structure. And we have our own Jamaican ballad. I don't know if you remember this one, Ballad of 65. Janet, I don't know if you could read for us, because I don't know if it can be mounted.
Right, I won't read all of it.
And this chronicles the Morant Bay Rebellion.
Right.
Really
I want to
tell
read.
Let me just
story.
jump in there. I believe I reached out to Lady T Ox. Do you have it in front of you?
Oh,
Yes, I do. Tigox again.
Okay.
Tigox.
Tygox. Sorry, I'm gonna fix that. Lady Tygox. She's
Mhm.
going to read for us Ballad 65.
wonderful.
Okay. The roads are rocky and the hills are steep. The macro scratches and the gullies deep. The town is far, news travels slow, and the mountain men have far to go. Bogle took his cutlass at Stony Gut and looked at the small heap of food he'd got. And he shook his head and his thoughts were sad. You can walk like a mule, but the crop's still bad. Bogle got his men and he led them down over the hills to Spanish Town. They chopped their way and they made a track to the governor's house, but he sent them back. As they trudged home back to Stony Gut, Paul's spirit sank with each bush he cut.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, but we're not hearing. If she's
No, I
continuing,
think she
we're
has
not hearing.
paused.
Right, fair enough, because it's really long. Go ahead, Carl.
All right. Is it that she has paused it, meaning we should continue, or is it that she's having some technical challenges?
I believe it's a good segue into what you're going into.
Pardon me?
Technical difficulty.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right,
All
but
right.
all right, well, we thank her for what she has read so far. In this ballad, we see this story. There's a story here. But I want us to see the connection between the sound and the meaning, the sound and the sense of it. Many times when we read what is written, we just see the rhyme and we're just rhyming for the sake of rhyming.
Sorry about that.
Yes, there has to be a connection between the sound and the sense.
Yeah,
the
I lost
sound
the
and meaning.
internet connection.
Yes, the sound has to be connected. The sound words have to be connected to the meaning. So we want you to bear that in mind. And you can listen to any of even the country and western. They tell stories, they use rhyme, but you see the sense of it. And you see how sometimes words are skillfully used. All right. There is another poem that we will be looking at. It's Flowers. Now, this is not a ballad. This is actually another form. This is actually a sonnet, and it is a Jamaican, it's a Caribbean poem, also another Caribbean poem. This is by Dennis Craig. I don't know if
Yes, I'll read. Okay.
Yes,
all right, flowers. I have never learned the names of flowers from beginning. My world has been a place of potholed streets where thick, sluggish gutters race in slow time, away from garbage heaps and sewers, past blanched old houses around which cowers stagnant earth. There, scarce green things grow to chase the dull gray squalor or the thick dust. No trace of plants save few sparse weeds. Just these, no flowers. One day, they cleared a space and made a park there in the city's slums. And suddenly came stark glory like lightning in the dark, while perfume and bright petals thundered slowly. I learned no names, but hue, shape, and scent mark my mind, even now with symbols holy.
Thank you, Janet. Now, here is another example of a form that uses rhyme. This is a sonnet, and there are many types of sonnet. We'll see another one later on, different structures, but they conform. It's like having a glass, and you can put anything in it, but nothing comes out of, nothing, it remains in the glass. So the form remains that shape, that 14-line situation structure, and you can experiment with it. Now, if you were able to see this poem, you would see the physical demarcation between the octave and the sestet. And you'll see not just this, the line space between them, but that there is a turn and there's a change and there's a shift in the mood. Now, when you are trying to use that form, whether you use experience on it or the others, you have to ensure that if you're using a form, you have to be kind of faithful to the form, unless of course you intend to disrupt the form. And nothing is wrong with that if you're doing that skillfully. But if you're doing it out of ignorance, now that's another situation. So there is a particular rhyme scheme with the poem Flowers, as we see. There are
ABA, ABBA, ABBAA.
Well, yes, it's A, B, A, B, A, B, B, A. That's the octave and then the sestet. C, D, C, D, C, D. Yeah, so you see the alternate rhyme at the end. Many poets do all kinds of exciting things with this form in terms of how they shift and they disrupt and so on, but they still keep it primarily between, in the 14 lines. All right. We are going to be looking at some more forms, but I want you to, even as we're doing that, keep Muta's poem at the back of your mind, because even as we are looking at some of these forms and these poems that rhyme, there are some forms that do not rhyme. Well, they do not rely on a regular rhyme scheme. Not that they don't rhyme, because some do rhyme. There are some forms that are freer and more flexible. So we want to bear that in mind. We are going to be looking at litany, but not right now, because it will bear out on the other slide, I think. But we want just for you to bear in mind that there are some forms. If you're using them, you need to have a clear understanding of the form that you're using. And then as this one is saying, rhyme, to rhyme or not to rhyme. Of course, when you are creating, you will have to determine what it is you're doing. Just as though we asked you earlier to select a fruit and be faithful to the characteristics of that fruit, we want you to, when you're creating your poem or poems, you have to determine, well, am I going to be using a regular rhyme scheme? Am I going to be using some kind of rhyme that it rhymes occasionally? Or am I going to dispense with rhyme totally? But in all that you do, the sound, there must be a strong correlation between the sound and the meaning. There must be a correlation between the sound and the message. There must be connection with your theme and the images that you will use to convey that theme or that message. If you are using lines and stanzas, you have to determine where you place your words. Poetry is not as random as you may think. Every word matters. Every word is placed there for a strategic purpose. So sometimes when we read some of what is written, we realize that the effort, though okay, could really benefit from a whole lot more polishing. Some words could be placed at more strategic points for effectiveness. For instance, a word that is in the middle of a line might not stand out so much as a word that is at the beginning of the line or the end of the line, or the word that is at the end of the line and rolls over into the next line. So punctuation is important. Where you break your line is important. Whether you're breaking your line because you want it to rhyme in a particular way, or whether you're breaking your line just for effectiveness because it's the freeness of what you're trying to bring out. But there must be some kind of thought to how you put your thoughts together. It's very, very important. So that will lead us now, Janet, to another poem that uses rhyme, uses a quatrain, you know, the 4-line stanza.
Right.
And that will tell us quite a few things.
And
that you don't have to write in standard English.
And this is a popular one that, yes, you know, New
So Janet
Scholar
will take us through that one.
All right. And of course, our own Louise Bennett Coverley, writer of this one, New Scholar, says, "Good morning, teacher. How is you? My name is Sarah Poole. This is for me little boy, Michael, and me just bring him to school. Him born one rainy day, ma'am. It wasn't coming on tonight. It was coming on tonight, sorry. Ugly baby go pretty for true, for this one was a sight. Him born the week when Rufus jackfruit tree did start to bear. Is that same month Obi pig dead, but me forget the year. We call him me, Mike, Mikey, Jakey, Jacob, Jack. But him right name is Michael Jacob Alexander Black. Not treat him rough, your teacher. Him is a sickly child. As you touch him hard, make him vehicle. As you touch him hard, he make nice. Some people say him twile. Take time with him, your teacher. If him rude and start to rave, just beat another boy and him will frighten and behave. For enough time when him rude a yard and won't hear me none all, I just beat the bedpost hard, ma. And you want to hear Jack Ball. Now that you know him little ways, and not having no fear that anything will mail him, so that anything will mail him. So I left him in your care."
Yes.
Go on.
So, Janet, you want to, all right. And so we just heard Janet doing that one, relying on a particular rhyme scheme. Here is a very traditional sonnet written by Christina Rossetti, a 19th century sonneteer. It's a poem about love and death and memory and forgetting and all of those things. And you'll notice the rhyme scheme. Since it's there and it's mounted, could we get somebody to read that one? And remember, this workshop, poetry is about reading, performing, writing, expressing. Any takers?
Remember me when I'm gone away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go yet turning stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me, you understand? I will be late to counsel then and or pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while and afterwards remember me, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad.
Thank you, Damien.
Lovely.
You know you have a lovely voice, don't you?
Thank you.
Yes. And I mean, for a poem that you are seeing probably for the first time, your interpretation was spot on. And if you could just go back to the poem 1 quick minute, just go 1 second, Janet, yes. You'll notice how the writer talks about death, but does not go into detail. It's not as graphic. Sometimes what we find in the renditions that we have got is a kind of a lack of sophistry. We're not able to use, say, euphemisms. So you notice that the idea of the silent land, you don't hear about the grave and death and so on, and dying. Remember me when I'm gone away. So sometimes if you're able to manipulate the language, you get a more nuanced effect than if you say, boy, I hope you remember when me dead, you know. I don't take nobody else when me gone. There are other ways of saying the same thing. And notice that this poem encapsulates a particular form. And as I put it up there, it's a sonnet. So it has the features in terms of the rhyme scheme. And you'll notice the change that comes in about line 9. Yet if you should forget me for a while, you see the change there. So if you're going to be using the sonnet, you have to determine whether you're using the Shakespearean sonnet with the quatrains and the couplet, or whether you're going to be using the octave and the sestet or any other variation. All right, thank you.
Okay,
so
next.
we could go now to, yes, repetition. Janet, is me or you?
Yes, it doesn't matter. Damon, can you be prepared to show the others to find Richard Cory for me and Ballad of Birmingham coming up? You'd have seen it in the listing. Yes. Those, yeah, okay. All right, repetition in poetry now. Now, this is key. The poets in particular tend to have a lot of repetitive lines, right? And they're great, by the way, because many times the repetition really underscores or be more poignant in terms of the message that the poet wants to have communicated. The repetition also brings attention to the theme and creates a particular effect, especially if you maintain a constant style with the repetitive lines, and or you say each repetitive line a different way to communicate a different meaning. It means therefore that you'd have set about using repetition because you want to create a particular effect.
I noticed in the chat, Janet, that somebody mentioned call and response, and that it works very well, especially with ballads and so on. But also, there's some amount of that in dub poetry too. You know, when you want to evoke a particular reaction.
Definitely. Yes. Definitely. And you'll get a chance, and I hope when they see that one, they'll get a chance to react. We see that reaction in the chat as we go along. So that particular, so the writer, the poet rather, wants to get a particular response from you, especially when the poem is being read or performed. When it is really on paper, you don't get that immediate response. But when it is read, then that response comes from you, a reaction, and they can see and measure it that particular way. Next slide, please.
Yes, and while you're going on to the next slide, before you bring that up, just want you to remember that in Muta's this poem, notice how repetition is used. This poem, this poem, this
every
poem.
line.
And in doing all of that, to see how disruptive poetry can be, how poetry can be revolutionary, how poetry can be eternal, how poetry is about history, how poetry sometimes might use like a bad word here and there too, how poetry can be irritating to some people because of the truth. And all of that comes through the repetitive, this poem, this poem, this poem, this poem. All right?
And that you never become tired either.
No, because sometimes too, when we read some of when we are unskillful in the use of repetition, it becomes boring, but not with Muta. All right?
Definitely.
Yes. Over to you.
All right. Damian, have you found that one? Can you play for us?
I did, as in the one that you have up?
Yeah, yes.
That is supposed to be Richard Cory.
Right. I didn't find that person who is on your screen.
It doesn't matter.
It's not the person. You'll find it. It's there, Richard Cory as titled.
Yes, I did. I did find it.
Okay.
And I also found the word.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to do? Play it or read it?
Yes, we want to hear it.
You want to hear it. Hearing more so.
Okay. Right. I'm saying play it or read it.
No, play it.
Okay. So I'm sharing my screen. You should not share your screen.
Richard Corey by Edwin Arlington Robinson.
Are we hearing?
Whenever
go ahead.
Richard Corey went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from sole to crown, clean-favored and imperially slim. And he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked. But still he fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything, to make us wish that we were in his place. So on we worked and waited for the light, and went without the meat, and cursed the bread. And Richard Corey, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet in his head.
Yes. Janet?
A very sad piece here. Nevertheless, really, if you, well, as you are really seeing the words too as well, but punctuation, some repetition there in terms of rhythm and a pattern and all of that you'd have seen and hopefully heard in seeing it because you really saw the lyrics there and heard it being articulated. We want to look at the next one in order to make a comparison.
And you'll notice, Janet, the rhyme scheme, the alternate rhyme that's used, and the story that it tells, and the twist at the end. Sometimes, you know, in telling a story, you have to build up, and sometimes the end of it is not quite what you were expecting. You'll notice how the poet sets up Richard. He's this perfect person. He's almost like a god. But clearly something was amiss because he with all that he has, he kills himself. All right.
And very sad. And of course, you know, you could punctuate that with so many other things to make it more, I call it more experiential. I would say experiential because we really don't want to see people
the whole
die.
idea of irony.
But
Yes,
the images.
You know, yes.
All right. All right. The other one for us, Damien, Ballad of Birmingham. The link is there.
Okay, I will find it. Birmingham by Dudley Randall.
Right.
Okay, found it. All right, I'm sharing my screen again. Okay, good.
Mother dear, may I go downtown instead of out to play and march the streets of Birmingham in a freedom march today? No, baby, no, baby, no. You may not go, for the dogs are fierce and wild, aren't good for a little child. But mother, I won't be alone. Other children will go with me and march the streets of Birmingham to make my country free. No, baby, no, baby, no. You may not go, for I fear those guns will fire and sing in the children's choir. She's combed and brushed her night dark hair and bathed rose petals sweet, and drawn white gloves on her small brown hands, and white shoes on her feet. The mother smiled to know her child was in the sacred place, but that smile was the last smile to come upon her face. For when she heard the explosion, her eyes grew wet and wild. She raced through the streets of Birmingham, calling for a child. She clawed through bits of glass and brick, then lifted out a shoe. Oh, here's the shoe my baby wore, but baby, where are you?
Right. Thank you. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Carol.
So you see here, what the poet has done is to take a particular moment in history of a particular people and put it to words. But you notice it's a ballad, so it is also a song. It can be sung. And you notice what really pulls you, it's the emotional appeal. So when you write, we want to get your soul. We want to be able to be there and feel it. I saw in the chat somebody said goose pimples. Yes, we want that. You need to be able to evoke that kind of feeling. And notice that even with all of that that's happening, there is still the idea of the sound of it and the meaning, because there, if you saw the printed poem, it observes a particular rhyme scheme. So quite a few things are happening. The emotional appeal, the sensory appeal, the words, the sound, the meaning, all of these are coming together. All right, so that is that ballad. We have another one we want you to listen to. I hope that, I don't know if Damien is tuned into that. The Michael Smith poem.
Which one is that? What's the name of this one?
We can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
We can't
All
believe
right.
it. Yeah.
I'm gonna believe it though.
And again, I want you to listen to sound and sense, sound and meaning.
Sound and meaning.
Michael Smith. All right.
And the idea of poem as social commentary. While Damien is queuing, I want you. All right, great. Okay.
Can't believe it. Me say me can't believe it. Room them a rent, me apply within. But as me going cockroach, rat and scorpion also come in. One good nose have to run. But me now go stump a high wall like Humpy Dumpy. Me, I face my reality. One little boy come blow him on. And me look on him with scorn. As me realize, say my 5 boy picnic was a victim of the trick them call parties and politics, and my band my belly and my ball. And my band my belly and my ball. Lord, me can't believe it. Me say me can't believe it. My daughter boyfriend name is Sailor, and him pass through the port like a ship. More grand picnic for feed and the whole of we need. What a night, what a plight, and we can't get a bite. My life is a stiff fight and me can't believe it. Me say me can't believe it. Sitting on the corners with my friend talking about things and time. Me one voice say, who that? Me say, who that? Oh, I say who that when we say who that? When you take a stock, them liquid down flat. Teeth start fly and big man start crying. Me say me can't believe it. I say me can't believe it. The other day me I pass one yard on the hill when me take a stop me here. Hey boy. Yes, ma'am. Hey boy. Yes, ma'am. You clean up the dog shit? Yes, ma'am. And me can't believe it. Me say me can't believe it. There is a mother 4 get a work as a domestic. Boss man moving and Babsy Kaisi cause she pregnant again. Babsy Kaisi cause she pregnant again and me can't believe it. Me say me can't believe it. That yard of the night when me hear fire, 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 fire to plate cloth. Who dead, you dead, who dead, me dead, who dead, Harry dead, who dead, 11 dead. Why? Orange Street fire upon me and me can't believe it. Me say me can't believe it. Lord, me some black boy living in one building but no rent, no pay so them can't stay. Lord, the oppressed and the dispossessed can't get no rest. What next? Take a trip from Kingston to Jamaica. Take 12 from a dozen and me see my mama.
All right. Is it?
Madhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Madhouse. Me say me
Was that
can't believe it. Me say me can't believe it. You believe it? How if you believe it and you laugh and you blind your eye to it, but me know you believe it, Lord. I know you believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. So here we see the use of repetition. Dub poetry relies a lot on repetition. Me can't believe it. But notice that in the repetition, there are quite a few things happening. The idea of social commentary. At that time, those of us who are old enough to remember the Orange Street fire and those women who died, nearly 140 of them, burned to death. We also see coming out in that the treatment of the vulnerable, the domestic helper, the so-called yard boy. But we also see how all of these issues are brought out through the use of the literary devices. We see the use of allusion to folk song, Lindsay Market, when it's not what a might that applied, what you know. So you get that, and it's almost as though he's singing there. And the idea of the metaphor with the soldier, the sailor and the ship. And also the resonances of folklore. Who that? Who that? I say who that, let me say who that. And notice too how dialogue is used. The idea of the so-called mistress and the yard boy. Hey boy, yes ma'am. Notice intonation, because when you're performing, it's quite different from when the words are on paper. And Janet will tell you that sometimes we select poems for performance. They are not necessarily the best, but they have some gems in them, some great strong lines. So when you're on stage, you're able to really put on a good show. So we hope that from this crop, we'll get some good pieces for performance. All right, so that's dub poetry using sound.
Just want to drop in there some
meaning.
comments coming from the chat from
right.
Malachi Smith. He said, I was at drama school with Mikey. He's the saddest dead person I've ever seen. I believe he was living this poem when he died. And Andrew McDaniel said, Madhouse, legend. Malachi went on to say that Orange Street Fire was different from Evening Tide. It was the same period of turmoil.
Okay.
Yes.
David M. says, trying to locate the poem, The Palisado's Finger Long. Any leads? Thanks. Yeah, Mikey and Malachi are quite legends in the poetry world.
Yes, we need to connect. We need to connect. All right. And Janet is going to take us through another use of repetition, this time through the eyes of a child.
Right. And as you see, your homework, and every child can connect with this. And why we chose a particular poem is because most of what we have been discussing are children. So this one was put in. Homework, anonymous writer. Homework, no one likes it. Homework is a bee sting on your tongue. It's the worst. Homework is dropping your ice cream cone on the sidewalk. How awful. Homework is a deflated balloon. So depressing. Let's do away with it. Homework. And here we see not only just repetition, but also the metaphor here, because we're going to be looking in terms of literary devices as well. And how is it you can see the imagery? You can, as you can see the ice cream, everybody has had ice cream falling from its cone at one point in time or another. And if you have ever been stung by a bee, you can feel that. So you have the visual effect. You have also the tactile effect there. And then you can also see and really progressionally how a balloon really deflates itself to become really flat, fully deflated. And then, of course, getting a little bit deeper now, the depressing feel that you have, all of us, it becomes experiential for all of us here at one point in our lives or another. We would have had homework that we really didn't want to do. How awful. And you and I, even at this stage, will say, let's do away with it. So we can agree here. All right. Move on to the next slide. We still have a little way yet to go.
Oh, and I don't know if Damien could get this for us. Still I Rise. This, of course, is live performance. And we included that particularly because we want you to see that a good poem works on many, many levels. And one of those levels is the performance aspect of it.
Yes.
And of course, Maya Angelou, she was just a genius at that.
Genius. And followed
the
by
words
that,
just walked off the paper.
Yes. And right after Damien, if you could also find our Mother to Son Langston Hughes poem back to back, please. All right, let's go ahead. You know, as we were researching Carol, as we wait for Damien to be ready, and we found many variations where Mayo actually did the same poem, and every time it was done, it was a different sensory feeling altogether.
Because I guess it depends on the audience too, and the context. Yes.
Damien, you ready?
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cry? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, all right. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance? As if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs. Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear I rise. bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so,
Great. Again.
What was the other one by Langston Hughes?
Yes, mother to son.
Okay.
And that really is another illustration of the skillful use of repetition, the idea of I rise. And notice even in the performance, the voice, how the voice is used to bring out that particular effect. And notice the figurative devices that are used there, the comparisons that are made. All right.
All right. Damon,
Well,
ready?
son,
Yes, we'll move
I'll
to the
tell you.
next.
Life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor. Bare. But all the time I's been a-climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps 'cause you find it's kinda hard. Don't you fall now. For ours is still going, honey. Ours is still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair.
Janet?
Performance.
Yes.
Performance.
It was
Mood.
symbol of the crystal stair and the use
Ah.
of repetition.
Excuse me.
Somebody speaking?
Yes.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I didn't want to interrupt, but I was wondering, when I came in late, so I didn't know if you had spoken previously. I was wondering, how would we know when the competition begins? Because I know this is the workshop, right? So I would want to know, like, the information.
Let
as
me
it
jump in
regards-
right there. Let me jump in there.
Damien will take you through that quickly.
All right, very quickly. The competition opened Monday last. That's January 10th. 2 days
Pardon?
ago. 2 days ago, the competition opened. And it closes in terms of performing arts on February 28th. And it also closes for literary arts, creative writing, on March 31st. So the competition is now open and it closes March 31st for all the writers.
Okay, so how would I go about entering the competition? Because I normally do it like at high school when before COVID, but I know things are supposed to be different now.
All right, well, not so much different, but I can assure you that if you visit our website, jcdc.gov.jm, you will be, it will be clear cut for you how to sign up and so on. So if you want, you can speak to me privately outside of
How would I speak to you privately?
in the chat.
Okay.
Could put your
Right,
numbers.
or failing that, Damien, we could give you a couple of minutes towards the end just to remind
Yes.
participants.
Right.
because we really
Alright.
want them to enter. We are looking
Right.
forward to a wonderful year. All right.
Right.
So
Cool, no problem.
And maybe in the meantime, those who want to enter, you can maybe just put your telephone number into the chat, and Damien will make a note of that and get back to you in terms of a further discussion.
Thank you. Nataki Topping in the chat has provided the JCDC's
Great.
website. And also, if you register here, we will be able to reach you. So ensure that you click on that Google link for you to register, so we have the information. And we will be having an upcoming workshop that deals with application process, what's new and what remains the same. So look in the chat and you'll see the link to the website and also for you to register. Thank you. Over to you, Doctor.
Okay, so we continue. So there goes, you just listen to Langston Hughes' poem, Age is Old. And of course, you could actually feel, the mood. You can get the pacing of, well, the reader really, in terms of how it was paced for you to absorb, to be transported into the experience. So the repetition, the mood, yes, the visual impact. When I talk about the visual, not necessarily now in terms of what you're seeing, because the images are there to complement the words being the words being spoken, but also when it is that you read the poem, that they can see those images. Life for me ain't a crystal stair. What does that look like? It has holes in it, bare floor. The descriptions are so vivid because of the choice of words. The poet has paid attention to the language, the experience. What is it you should get? What is it you should understand? What is it you should actually feel? What is it, what the message is, having heard this poem? What is the message to you? So though it's a mother is speaking to a son, what is that message to you, the reader of the poem, as the message that is communicated again by the writer? So we pay all attention to that. So the pacing, the performance of it, the feeling, the repetition, the metaphors, and all these different things for the set of poems that we have looked at, quote unquote, back to back as we developed into the presentation this afternoon. All right. Now we have to concentrate now a little bit now on the literary devices now. And these are critical.
All right, I will take on a few, and then Janet, you will
all right,
continue
go ahead.
as usual. Onomatopoeia, you know, the idea of sound, words conveying this sound. You hear the word, you hear the sound through the word. And there are some very common ones. And you have them on the slide: clash, whoosh, ping, boom, splash. And there are some poems, sometimes we see attempts in the renditions of your using the sound, these sound words. But I found a little one this morning that the junior category might find appealing, and it is just called Splish Splash. And it goes like this: the drip drop of the rain, it's time to run. A big jump, splish, splash goes the puddle, squeal, and the child giggles happily. Now, it's almost a kind of nonsense poem, but what it is bringing across is the whole idea of, you know, childhood innocence, playing in the rain, and you actually hear the sound of it. I also remember this poem, Nature. We used to do that in primary school, and there's an example of onomatopoeia in that poem. The line that says, and there's no sound but the swish of the waters in the gullies. I always, you know, remember that. And because I live near a river, I could, you know, that really resonated for me. So that's onomatopoeia. Personification is another one. And sometimes we see attempts at it, sometimes very good, sometimes not so good. But there are quite a few poems that really do give some very effective renditions of personification. And it's when you give the idea of giving human emotions and qualities to objects and sometimes plants and so on. And this poem, this is a dark time.
Yes.
This is a dark time, I love. My Martin Carter. The line that says, red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. It's like the flowers are people with the ability to feel sad. So the drooping petals become it's like a bowed head, and a bowed head either in shame or sorrow or depression, but it's a negative association. So that is also one of the ways in which you can use personification. And of course, sometimes the personification acts as a metaphor as well. Could we move to the next slide?
Right there.
Yes, and the use of simile. Well, that is a very common one, and many times we see good use of it. Good use of it, as in, and usually it's when you take two unlike things and you find something that they share, some quality. And usually the signal words, not always, are like or as. So we have the example, the words cut through my heart like a knife. In other words, you can just imagine a sharp knife cutting through meat and the pain that it causes and the bleeding that results from that. The whole idea of this is how I feel, this is how hurt I am because of what you say to me. Now the metaphor is a stronger kind of comparison. Instead of saying that something is like something, and you know, in Jamaica, when there's no shortage of similes. If you just easy back and watch two persons tracing, you are never short of similes. Go find your favor like that, and you see that coming out. But the metaphor is stronger in the sense that it is saying that this quality is what it is, even though they might be unlike. So the example of the metaphor, her hair was a winding path of intrigue. So just as though you'd have a path that is winding and you don't know what remains at the next corner, this is what the hair looks like. Possibilities, intrigue, all kinds of things, you know, curls. So it could be the curls of the hair, the locks or whatever, being compared to a winding path. Now, I want us to listen to a song that, well, it's one of my favorite songs. I'm very old school, but this song actually is filled with figurative expressions, and it speaks to a kind of definition of love. Some say love. So I hope that Damien is able to, I hope we'll get the sound from that.
Damien.
Okay. So it tells you, you know, it speaks to love. What is love? Are we able to get it?
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you comes a rose.
Thank you. Well, somebody is asking, is love a rose? Well,
It's
what
a piece
say
of
the
bush.
others? Love.
It's a piece of bush. It's a maca.
Well, yes, I mean, if you look at it, you know, it shows you the whole beauty, the different folds.
Breaking up.
But how do you get to that? So if you just, some people, they get one little joke and they just decide that I done with love, I'm giving up. But if you pursue, and maybe that is why I like the pineapple metaphor for me, because if you can move past these things, the deterrents, the challenges, you move into something greater. And this is where that rose with all the smell and the possibilities. You'll notice though, with that song, with that poem, because it's a good poem, it's a beautiful poem. Some say love is a river that drowns the tender reed, and it continues. I say love is a flower, and you, its only seed. In other words, there's nobody else but you. Love is the flower, and you are the seed. And you know, the seed and spring possibilities for growth. And there are quite a few other lines there that are quite literary. And this is how we want you to write. And notice too, the poet's use of repetition again. And notice how sound is connected to meaning. So when we write, we should be deliberate in how we craft our words. Every word should mean something. Every word should matter. So thank you, Damon, for being our technical support. We can move to the next slide. And I think this is where Janet will take us through a few more literary devices. Or is it me? Is me, Janet,
Yes,
or you?
it doesn't matter. I'll go.
It must be, I think it's me, you know.
It's you? All right.
That,
And then
no, yeah, I think it's me. All right. Yes, because there's another one that you will do.
All right. And symbolism, can you prepare symbolism? Sorry, prepare Martin Carter for me. This is a dark time. I love Damien, please.
We continue with some sound words, assonance. I know sometimes we try to, and there are quite a few poems that, especially some of the traditional writers who craft their poems in such a way that you see the care. Every word is honed, H-O-N-E-D, for a particular effect. And when we use the vowel sounds, when they're repeated behind each other in words, we call that assonance. And I have taken a line from God's Grandeur. It's a sonnet by Hopkins. And the line goes, and all is seared with trade, bleared, smeared with toil. So you see the vowels on the sneered and trade and so on. The opposite is with alliteration, sound again, but this is when you concentrate on the consonant. And there are quite all the tongue twisters actually employ the use of consonants. And this is the one that is a very popular one, the one with the P sound. And notice that in getting that P sound, you have the effect of the puckered lips, kind of. Peter Piper picked, can I find? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. But if you want something a little bit more literary, I like the Beatles, and one of their songs, there's a line, whisper words of wisdom, let it be. So you have the W, woo, 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 whisper words of wisdom. And
here is one, Carol. Here's one that would be nice for children too.
Yes,
called
let us hear it.
Tigers. Very short.
Read it
Tim
for us
the-
if you have it.
Yes, it's called Tigers. Tim the terrifying tiger tiptoes through tangled trees, his twitching tail thumping, his terrible teeth terrifying, who tumble away. And then for the assonance here too, who knows why the cold wind blows or where it goes or what it knows? It only flows in passionate throes until it finally slows and settles in repose. So I just gave you one for assonance and one for alliteration.
Yes, good. And the alliteration one is, that would work very well for children because they like these kinds of playful things. So if you're writing for the children, if you're using the junior category, instead of using the big people issues for the juniors, you'll find something that, you know, that would create innocence and fun and frolic and so on. This is what we hope to see, or, you know, or even if they're dealing with adult things like death, we use euphemisms or use things in such a way that it is not so, you know, so graphic. All right, the next one, hyperbole. Of course, that's an exaggeration or an overstatement. And we use that in our everyday speech all the time. Boy, I walk 1,000,000 miles this morning. We know that you didn't walk 1,000,000 miles. You probably didn't even walk 2. But because of how you feel in terms of the length of the walk, you know, how long you feel you had to walk, you might use that. And people use that. We use that in poetry as well. And symbolism is another. And that will come up also in the poem that Jeanette will be discussing.
Yes.
The idea of the sun.
Martin Carter.
Yes, yes. So we'll get to that. It's when you use something to represent something else. And symbols, and even in non-poetic senses, there are many signs that represent symbols, like the cross. There are some universal archetypal symbols that whenever you see them or you use them in poetry, they tend to have a particular meaning. You know, when the cross and crosses and tribulation and so on, those kinds of things. All right, so let us hear the
Martin Carter.
The Martin Carter.
This is a Dark Time, My Love, by Martin Carter. This is the dark time, my love. All around the land, brown beetles crawl about. The shining sun is hidden in the sky. Red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. This is the dark time, my love. It is a season of oppression, dark metal, and tears. It is the festival of guns, the carnival of misery. Everywhere the faces of men are strained and anxious. Who comes walking in the dark night time? Whose boot of steel tramps down the slender grass? It is the man of death, my love, the strange invader, watching you sleep and aiming at your dreams.
Oh, wonderful.
As read by Keith Noel.
Keith Noel, a colleague of mine.
Yes, who read actually the reading of this poem. And symbols, use of object or sounds or color to represent something else. What we have seen, well, the more mature writers in terms of writing for adults tend to use a lot of symbols in their writing. And the concern is that how is it we represent, what symbol we use to truly represent that idea or that image or even an event that we want to convey. In Martin Carter's poem, you find that the imagery here or the image that's here in terms of showing us or making references to artificial material for us to understand the natural part of things. So the boots that you see, the guns that we talk about in terms of reflecting of war and violence and all of those images that come out, and the symbolism, the symbols that are being referred to in there, and the symbols also that actually speak to the actual tone. So you get the feeling that this dark era, and you could look at even the very pandemic. I'm anxious to see what are some of the poems that are going to be coming out to reflect this is a dark time in the history of mankind and the changes. Time and changes really, whether for good or bad. And how is it, what symbols are going to be used to represent an era? And so it is with Martin Carter's work here, aligning the tone of the poem, identifying the theme or sanctioning the theme of the poem, and at the same time, giving a sense of what images can best represent the whole business of death and how people are crushed. What is it that crushes humankind, really? What is it that destroys humankind? So that is it in terms of how are you going to use any object or any color or any sound to represent your
and
idea.
How do you sustain it in your work? Sometimes we see just a little glimpse of it and then nothing else in the poem. You need to sustain it. So for example, in the Martin Carter poem, the whole idea of darkness, we see that in the symbolism because the sun is hidden. We see that in the title, Dark Time. We see that, so it is sustained in so many things. And even when you see things that are supposed to be happy, they are not. It's a festival of guns, the carnival of misery. So even things that we normally associate with happiness, there's a kind of inversion. All right.
Contrasting, festival of guns. Festival is something that you're happy about, but yet the guns are destructive of that. Yes. All right. Next.
So Miss Janet, you continue with the next slide.
Next one. All right.
Okay.
All right. Analyzing your poetry now. So we're looking now in terms of what you have written so far today, and possibly what you have before that you have and possibly want to share. So yes, of course, you are the poet that really are writing this poem or writing this idea that you have in your head, whatever form or shape or whatever kind of literary devices you're using to express. The persona really becomes the character, the person that you're speaking about within the poem. And what is it about the persona, whatever the persona is in the poem that you're talking about. And certainly the sound you have heard we have done a number of poems today that really, the sound of it, and I'm looking at the what is it you are hearing and the meaning of what you are hearing. How does that play upon the reader, upon the listener, to keep the listener and the reader engaged in your work, wanting to continue to read, wanting to continue to listen, and more than likely to do it for a long time, because the longevity of your work is also crucial. So you can't have it today and then it is forgotten tomorrow. Notice the pieces that we have shared with you are timeless pieces. They are like classics over the ages that have stood the test of time, having the elements that we have been talking about, reflective of the different, they call it now, the literary devices, the language expression, the meaning, the mood, the tone, and all of that. You want your piece of work to be like that. And in terms of how you structure your ideas, be it a free verse form, be it somehow in a particular shape, but having particular rhythm. And yes, some poems in terms of, though it might have particular rhyming scheme or so, there are others that don't have a set rhyming scheme, be it A, B, or whatever, but somehow how it is read in terms of where you put your punctuation mark suggests or is indicating to the reader where it is now that you need to either change the beat or change the pace, and sometimes depending on their interpretation, as opposed now to what they're seeing on paper, because what you see on paper is really dead until it is performed or until it is read. So pay attention now to your structure, because when we are looking at your work and what is it you have to say, when it comes to us on this side and we are looking at your work, we are looking at it in terms of the literary value. And I know Carol would have pointed out to you that there are times when we find performance pieces that really do not measure up in terms of the literary quality of it. But because it has that performative element, then we recommend it to be performed, because when it is performed, it's so much different from it is seen on paper, as opposed to you still have fine work, fine writing on paper, and even sometimes it might be difficult to perform because there's so much embedded in the actual writing. So we want you to pay attention now to your work. What is it you have, whether or not it can stand up to scrutiny to what we have been saying today and what we are encouraging you to go back, because some of the pieces that you write certainly need a revisiting. It really needs an editing, and we want to be able to have the skills. And yes, you probably might not be like a Muta. You probably might not be like a Langston Hughes or any of those names, popular names that you'd have heard, but you probably might just be a quiet writer who probably writing for juniors. So your poem might not be as extensive as a ballad or so, or it might not be one of those that in terms of the pacing captures, but the language that's there is appropriate and the content itself is appropriate for the age group that you're writing. And one of the things that is engaging about the poetry, or should be engaging about the poetry. I know people don't want to analyze poetry necessarily, but you should want to think. It's not just to enjoy, yes, to enjoy is key, but you also want to leave something in their head that they keep toying around that they will not forget for many days. Next slide, because of time. All right. So moving on now, we want to look at another shape of poem, and you probably would have seen that we didn't highlight that much because we didn't think it was important then. And this is a French word, hope I can pronounce it properly because I don't really speak French, but as I hear it, I'm trying to reproduce the sound. Enjambement, I hope I got it right. Enjambement, right? It means that how your poem is written, and we look at a sample right after this, how you actually put it on paper now, not just the shape only, because sometimes there are run-on lines in that they run to the next line, right? Which doesn't necessarily begin with a capital letter or so. And then all you have maybe a semicolon, or you may have a comma and you start now with a capital letter in the middle of that. So it's the continuance of a line of an idea after the line really does break. Here goes on paper, because when the poem is read or said, we don't know where those pauses are in terms of the punctuation marks. We are only trusting the interpretation of the performer of your work or the person who is reading of your work, but looking at it on paper, what is it we are seeing? Next slide for me, please. So I just want to look at this now for the enjambement in poetry, because it can be something we'd want to encourage someone, but we have to get it right. And it is titled Elegy. Okay. And I'll just read what I just want. As I'm reading, I just want to pay attention to where I do pause and how the line really runs on. Green gold the leaves, right? That's the end of one line. The setting sun sustaining the patch of shrubbery with light. You see that idea running right across, going down into the middle of this 1, 2, 3, line 4. Then it picks up now. The light, there's a semicolon there. The light waning elsewhere. Watch now goes on. Here goes a colon. All else dull and gray against the fire. Full stop. Here goes. Green gold stem, comma. A burning gold wire. End of an idea there. And scarlet blossoms, tongues of flame, and that rolls into another line. But while I write, the light fails. There we go. Another pause right there in the middle of the line down there. Starting with one word now. Scarlet and green gold bright fade. A semicolon in the middle there. Tree and shrub and blossom shrink and are lost in the dusk. You see how far that idea takes us? Only a gleaming scimitar, cleaving the evening sky with green gold light swift sheathed. The blinds are drawn and the landscape sinks tonight. Thank you. Something is happening here. All right. So we are trying to show you how it is when you write your poem, and we have seen many like that. But when we read it and try to put an understanding to it, sometimes it doesn't follow the way I think you would have liked it, simply because you would not have punctuated, may I dare say, what we consider to correctly, or the punctuation mark is placed at the correct place in order to communicate an idea or a fragment of an idea. We don't really experiment with the fragments of such unless you're going to put some ellipses in, which are really 3 dots, to suggest that you're continuing into something else, or you're using the ellipses as an idea or to develop into another idea. All right. So that's what we talk about, the enjambement
in your writing. And yes, we are going to encourage you to experiment. Just pay attention to how exactly you are using your punctuation marks in your poetry, and how is it you allow an idea to extend itself from the middle of a line to another line or two later down as you develop. And so we have created for you some kind of checklist, really, for you to match up your work.
And it's something that we have been talking about, and I'm just reinforcing in terms of bullets here from what Janet just said. The idea is that when you write, whether we are reading it or whether we are listening, we have to make some connection. So the meaning and the theme must be clear. Create a title that makes sense, that can work. Sometimes a good title summarizes the poem succinctly. We think about the tone and the mood. We think about how appropriate is the content for the age. As we mentioned at the outset, are you writing for a junior audience, intermediate, or adult? The structure is important. Are you using a fixed structure, one of the traditional structures, or are you a little bit more experimental with your structure? Sound, the sound words, the devices, the language, the imagery, are we able to sense, to see, to taste, to smell, to feel? What kinds of pictures, mind pictures, do we see through your writing? What is the setting? Where's all of this happening? Whose point of view? Who is the speaker in the poem? Is this an old woman speaking? Is it a child? The genre again. Is it a sonnet? Is it a ballad? You know, what is it? And what technique are you using? What is your style as a writer? So these are just some of the things. Of course, a few of them overlap, but just some guidance when you write. You can just tick up, do I have all of these? And of course, always edit your work. It is very, very important. Sometimes we see some works that are not quite finished, could have done with a few, corrections in terms of spelling, and use your spell check. There are some things that the computer will not pick up, especially if you use some homonyms wrongly and so on. But it is always helpful to have a second eye to glance through for you. So, you could share your ideas. Could we go to the next slide, please?
Right.
And this is really just a kind of wrap up and reinforcement. Janet?
Yes, and which we spoke about the title and the grammar already. Be mindful though, adjectives now. You don't want to overuse and actually kill the idea or your message in the poem. So you have to be careful about that. And we talk about the imagery. What imagery best? Is it a visual imagery in your head that you're going to try to get out in the words, that when the words are being read and spoken, we can see exactly what we're talking about, right? Look in terms of, if it's something that we are to smell, what are the words that will evoke a sense of wanting you to smell? What is it that make you feel? Because I tell you, all the poems that we read aloud, to see if we can feel your work, to see if the mood and feeling are captured with whatever you are saying. Because just looking at paper and doing it doesn't really work. We have to articulate it to see if we hear it. You have to hear it and feel it and do the words. And do the words truly convey what is the message here? So we really take a serious approach to what your work is about. All right. And we have to be mindful too in terms of, I call it subtlety of the language, really.
because some things you don't want to be very graphic, as the sonnet we saw earlier about death, and so you don't want to give us the details of the death. Use language somehow to communicate subtly the whole business of love and sex and all these other things that, you know, rape and some harsh things that come in the writing and so, but it can be expressed away with much intensity without being so graphic. So you have to be careful, especially when you're writing, even though you're writing for a mature audience sometimes, some of you in terms of the category that you choose, you want them to think about deeply so it can resonate with them a little bit more than, you know, that overuse of graphic imagery, I would call it. All right. But time is running away from us, and we want you actually to share some of you, or take you through a process quickly to see how well we do.
And so this actually is the final work, the final bit, the final slide, so to speak. And we want you now to return to either your fruit imagery or your animal imagery. And we want to see you just do something a little bit more with it, so we can do a little sharing before we end. I know we have about a little over 15 minutes.
Right. Just to also jump in there, that we do have an evaluation of the process, and that's in the chat right now. That's the most recent comment in the chat, so you can click on that. Just a reminder that you should also register if you haven't, and you can privately message me and I'll send you the registration, so as we're not confusing everybody.
So there are three things that we should do. We should do the evaluation, do your registration, and then do this activity here, you know, so we can hear a few of you. We could hear a few finished, so to speak, poems, short poems on the fruit or the animal.
Oh, somebody had said earlier that why they didn't select a bird is because they haven't found a 4-foot bird as yet.
No. Notice
I love it.
Or. But that's a good one.
That's a good one indeed. All right. So we give you a chance quickly just to refine what you did, what we started out with, or develop on that. Or if you have an original one that you want us to look at. And it's okay to make yourself vulnerable, because that is how we learn, you know, so because we don't have much time left. So we have registration, we have activation of your work in terms of the process. Give me another one, Damian, that you're asking them to do.
The evaluation.
It's an evaluation, registration, and activation. I'm trying to find rhyme and rhythm here.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So if anybody has anything they want to share, your original writing, please, or poem, or a few minutes.
I will go back into the chat of earlier times. Let me see if I can find it. Coming down. Brick Rose had said he's a lion inside of a cat. Andrew McDaniel said a fox. I like tricks. Line, the fox is uninvited guest who causes the least trouble, but is given the worst blame for it.
I wish I could see it on paper.
Okay.
I wish I could can we just see his on paper and we read the others?
Oh, I get you.
It would be nice if I could see a sample, one of them on paper. Yes.
Okay.
The words.
Suzette Bennett, I'm reading from the chat. And eagle is not afraid of the storm. Sight in the eagle's is the eagle's strongest sense. Opal Scott, Phoenix, a mythical bird that rises from the ashes of its predecessor, signifies the sun, a very beautiful bird inside and out. If it's mythical, how would you know? Just a question. Clive Bowen, I'm a bird, an eagle at that. I've selected an eagle because it is a bird of uncommon character and capabilities. The regal eagle aloft, but not aloof, straddles the saddle of the wind and soars above the world, where no other bird dares to ride.
Okay. We have many things happening in that one.
Yes.
I can hear the metaphor. Bowen's work seems to be metaphoric in nature. I'm an eagle, so, and some other things that have been said. I hear
Yes.
also some rhyming
Yeah, and
there,
the
some
eagle is
rhyming
a
words.
the eagle tend to be a solitary creature,
That's what he
solitary
said.
bird.
Saddles
That
the
is,
wind and
yeah.
soars.
Yes.
So are you a solo person?
Blair from Belize says, blind salamander, cold-blooded and put here to punish, to crawl on my belly. I'll breathe through my skin if I have to. You can cut off my limbs, but they will grow back. I will catch you and eat you. Can't see the whole picture yet, or ever, but I'm still squirming along.
Whole heap of things happening there.
Lots of things, yes.
A
I
lot
wish you could
of
see
things.
it.
The idea
Yes.
that you can reinvent yourself.
Yes.
The
Wow.
idea of danger, survival.
Survival, yes.
David M.
Mhm.
Night owl. I'm
Somebody is
measured in
asking,
my.
I think, Kate,
Go on.
somebody wants to read.
No. Can we hear Night Owl first?
Sure. David M. Night owl. I am measured in my action, perceptive even when dark is nigh, quiet, exploratory, and daring, flying in arenas both low and high.
An appropriate title. Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. I
No,
like it.
I am getting so excited here.
Me too.
Yeah. Really getting excited.
We need to see those in the competition, man.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I just want to jump in there and said, when we were listening to This Is the Dark Time I Love by Mr. Carter, we encouraged people to write about, the pandemic. But I also want to just throw to you that there is a special acknowledgement prize trophy that will be devised for the best celebratory poem that will reflect, or creative expression that will reflect Make Us 60. So we're just throwing that out there. That even in the midst of the dark time, we're having festive time.
So find a good metaphor to undergird your poem. One that speaks of celebration, sustainability, the idea of survival and all of that, resilience. There are so many things that you could fall back on.
Well, there is much for the pandemic year, much going on this year and last year to write about, both good and bad, uplifting, and many metaphors we can find, and symbols too.
Melissa
Is that
has something that I
Malachi?
don't know if you want to read it first.
Somebody
Daniel.
wants to, is that something I hear a voice? Malachi?
Yes. So I'm struggling with this piece for a little while, and I call it fragmented picture. Watch the sky, a heavy boom coming high above the desert, dark ages descends, fangs of serpents, jacobins, guillotines, headless corpse marching, red, black splattering against sky, expression, impression, repression, repercussion. The painter from the east has lost his brush. In the west, the chip is the best. 666 in your forehead, or you're dead. What a circus, cosmopolitan, partisan, libertarian, weds a con man in November. White House and legislators in his pocket. Red Fox lies, sells its rockets, and Wall Street. The Dow goes up, the Dow goes down, the Dow goes round and round and round, searching for a deal in China. The rich breaks the bank in America and add $1 trillion to the back of sufferers. Headline news, gold, cold front in August, hot cycles in January, bombastic, beaches losing waistline. Should be Genesis, beaches losing waistline, and there's no vacancy for the rich moving higher, pushing the poor out the door, and they can't afford a ticket to the space station in New York, jogging through Central Park. A stalker, a rapist, a murderer breathing down your neck back like a dolly clock striking midnight. Maccabee can be wrong, John cite in Revelation, whose version right, who wrong, Peter, John, Maccabees, the Quran, the King James Version. Is sin a lie? Why people born and die, and if sin is true? Will God give the dead power to sue pilgrims, colonizers, conquistador, murderers who fled to heaven to buy milk and honey with stolen money? Will they be judged as the rest of humanity?
This poem is written by Malachi Smith.
Wow.
Oh, wow. I love it.
Wow.
But
I
I'm
am just
thinking-
blown away.
Yes. It's lovely, Carol and
Yes,
Damien.
somebody say it's deep, it's profound, it's provocative.
What I would do with it though,
Mm-hmm.
what I would do with it though, Carol and T, Malachi,
Mhm.
you
Yes.
said fragment as a title, fragment picture. I
Right.
would just keep the title as fragment. And
Yes, yes.
And as I listen to you, and because I'm not seeing it on paper,
Right.
what I began to write here is that, and I don't know how you have it on paper, what it looks like, if you could somehow, and I won't necessarily say a stanza because I need to see it, the
Right.
sections that, all things that speak to systems, you could
Mhm.
keep that in one area one frame by itself. That which
Right.
speaks to nature, you put it by itself. That which gives biblical or religious allusion, you keep that by itself. So basically, it would be so structured. I don't want to say thematic a kind of way, but as like a sub-theme in the sections that you have. So I hope it is not just long, just like that, and the breaks are not evident. So that's what I would do it maybe to refine it a little bit more for you. But then again, too, I am only functioning based on what I hear because I'm not seeing it on paper.
Yeah,
I guess you probably
I think
don't have many.
Janet wants to see the physicality of it. But
Right.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Janelle
But good
Reed
work.
Bowen says that it sounds complete, Malachi. That's what Janelle said.
Yeah, but you see,
It sounds.
every poem could do with a little bit more polishing. But it's
Yes.
great. It's good. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, very good. And an excellent performance piece too.
Yes, I was thinking.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. I've been struggling with it for a while.
Looking forward to seeing it in the competition.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Remember to have pen names, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to know who you are.
Yes, that's important.
I hope that is part of that. You remind them in the when they are applying, when they're
Yeah. When they're doing their application.
Yeah.
Patricia Reed Wall has been so patient. Go ahead, Mrs. Reed Wall.
Yes, she's raring to go, raring.
All right. Two things. First thing is, did somebody tell me that we could get feedback on the poems that we had entered in the competition?
Not not in this forum, but I'm going to be speaking to the adjudicators to speak to specifics in the poem. So this is not the forum to get that kind of thing.
No. I didn't mean no, but if I wanted to get feedback on my poems, is there somewhere that I could get it from?
Yes, we will. Yes, see, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But we read everyone, and we
Trust me, they do.
comment on everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to read something for you.
Okay.
All right. It's called My Branch of the Family Tree. I am a branch of my family tree, a tall tree, a strong tree, rooted in years of history and a long line of ancestry, pruned in each successive generation by the loving hands of God, creating my tree's character and goodness. I am a branch of my family tree, a big tree, a pretty tree, swaying in the wind of life, bringing joy to the world through flowery and colorful laughter and shedding leaves of love and hope on all who pass beneath. I'm a branch of my family tree, a good tree, an ever-growing tree with trunk and branches reaching out in all directions, stretching up to the heavens towards the sunlight of God's love. I'm a branch of my family tree, and I wave my branch, content to know that one day the hurricane of death will rush in and clip me from my tree, and my branch will fall to the ground, and my leaves will melt in the earth and be transformed into nourishment, perhaps for your family tree.
All right, I like the idea of repetition, the branch and the tree and so on. But there are some elements that are a little too literal that you could elevate a little bit, and you could get the same or more effective reading if you didn't rely so much on idiomatic expressions and cliches and so on.
Okay.
But
okay.
You have a strong theme there, and you have used repetition well. But there are just some other things that you could spruce up a little bit. So,
Okay.
you know, yeah.
Okay.
I wish I'm sorry I don't have it before me. We could just quickly, you know, go through. But continue to write.
Okay. Thank you.
You could develop a whole series of poems with the family tree and the bad fruit of the tree, because you know every family have them bad fruit. And so on, you know, and the bitter fruit and the widow fruit.
And the jackfruit.
And those fruit that, you know, produce and so on.
Oh, okay.
Melissa Mackenzie, you have
Thank
your hand
you.
up. You're welcome. Melissa, over to you.
Yeah, because we
Hold a second. Sorry
We're
about that.
holding. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I should read the one in the chat. Okay. All right. Let me just read this one that I have on the screen here in front of me. I don't think I'm a very good reader. I don't think I'm a very good reader of my poems sometimes. All right. So, she is tethered to for better or worse. In her world, fists have become cocoons. She has traded her dignity for black eyes and bruises, for premeditated apologies and alcohol-soaked sex. She keeps on returning for second helpings of his rages, pretending as if her muted tears have not become hell in her throat, acting like she deserves nothing but prayers that come up empty-handed and a life of fabricated smiles.
The
all
end.
right. I like the use of metaphors, but sometimes when you have too many of them working, it kind of clouds the meaning. So maybe if you were to concentrate on one controlling metaphor, like the idea of the feeding and the food, and her coming back for seconds and so on, and build out on that.
Right.
You know, it might give you a little bit more focus, because quite a few things are happening. You know, sometimes in a poem, if you really were to pull it apart, you'll have 5 different poems working, you know. So maybe you have too many ideas going there if you were to probably select the idea of the domestic abuse and connect it to the food imagery and the servings and the seconds and so on. And, you know, be a little bit more creative with the expressions. Yes.
Right.
But you have something there to work on.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Mas Damian, I think it is it's your wrap-up time.
No, you know, I mean, what we're seeing is people are enjoying this kind of interactivity, at least the last part of it. So I'm just allowing it to happen. A gentle reminder, ladies and gentlemen, your thoughts and opinions on how the workshop went is important for us to know what direction to go. So I'm just reminding you to please drop a comment on not the chat, but the evaluation that is in the chat from Miss Nataki Topping. We do appreciate, so let me just wrap with our facilitators. Just scanning through the chat, we're seeing great workshop. I appreciate your feedback. Earlier there was one about positive energy and learning energy. I just want to say that to both of you, I think Doctors Janet Williams and Hunter Clark, it was a perfect blend. I believe you were the two bread that we needed for this sandwich of presentation. Now, I think you complemented each other very well, and you broke it down for us. I don't want to fill you up with adjectives and so on, but you can hear, and the participants are free to open their mic and just, offer their thoughts on the workshop. But thank you so very much. You covered so many things in such a short space of time, and we're very excited about that. I actually am very excited about part 2 of this workshop. We'll explore you doing what you've started to do at the end of this, which is to pick apart the presentation. And you said something very important, which is, yes, we're hearing it one way, but seeing it is a different kind of critique. And so those kinds of things certainly helped. I know I met someone who entered the competition and got a bronze, or a merit, I believe, and they were curious as to the various readership, junior, intermediate, and adult. And they felt like, oh, I just entered my piece in adults because adults were going to read it. But what you did do today in terms of the literary devices to be used was able to make it palatable and understandable for us to say, look here, when you're writing for kids, some of those things, you are not so blatant with the strong images or words. So again, I could stay here and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are doctors simply because you are brilliant at what you do. And today we have become, again, part of your cohort of students. So thank you so very much for that.
Go, Damien. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Kesia says, thank you so very much. So from here, us here at JCDC, we want to thank you very much for this beautiful workshop. And on behalf of those in the social media world and on Zoomland, thank you so very much. Just reading the comments. Opal Scott said, learned a lot. Thank you. You were great presenters. Suzette Ben says, I enjoyed the workshop. The great examples really helped my interest. I knew I was moved by some of those poems that you brought up, and you made a very clear point, which is about like the Langston Hughes and the Carter, how timeless their pieces are. And here we have a legend with us. I keep calling him a legend, Mr. Smith, who shared with us that Keith Noel, for example, taught him. Keith Noel is a dear friend of mine, and his accent is something I copy a lot.
Keith taught me too.
Well, we co-author quite a few books,
Oh, look at that.
So.
Wow.
Yes.
Right.
Michael Record taught me too.
Yeah, wow. Yes, he taught me playwriting.
Yes, he taught me at grammar school.
Yes.
And we really enjoy, we really enjoy doing this. And Janet and I, we go far, we love
go
what
way
we
back.
do.
Yes. And just to say to you, Damien and the team, all the persons out there, those who are working behind the scenes, Carl and I, we are saying thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your support.
Oh, yes.
Thank you,
thanks.
participants, for being there and staying the course. And even those who came in late, we are happy you came and that you're willing to actually share and put your work, your
Yes.
thoughts and
It
ideas
was a
out
good
there for
workshop.
scrutiny. We
Thank you.
really are appreciative because
Yes.
you made the workshop a success
Mhm.
more than how we made it. So we thank you so. And of course, a special thanks to Damien, to our wonderful
yes.
captain.
Well, he's our son, we adopt him. So, I mean, he does have a choice. We just take him over.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Sir David. I mean, thank you
Thank
both.
you.
Just to let you know that you're seeing my face, but there's a team that we work with, the ADT team, the Artistic Development and Training team here at JCDC that does all these competitions. And that's led by Sir Andrew Broadwell, but also specifically to the support that I have, which is Mrs. Nataki Ellis. Her computer doesn't have a camera, and I don't think she wants to come on board. But may I call her name plenty times. Is one that does a whole lot of things, as you said in the background, plenty things that goes on because we're seeing the writing and we're doing everything that we can to make sure that people, works get exposed. Just to read some more of the comments here, it says, fantastic. Question, how do we write effectively in Patois without a dictionary? Phonology.
Yes, sometimes you just have to sound it out.
Sound it out, yes. St. Elizabeth, Carol Blake Bailey says, good evening, I'm happy to be a part of this workshop. Malachi, blessings galore. There's a request for an editing session. We'll work on that.
Yes.
Excellent facilitator. That's Michael Record. And to hear from the teacher to the teachers. Big up yourselves. Damien, fabulous anchor. Thank you so very much. Reed Ross says it's a great workshop, very interesting and informative, also inspiring. Thank you. Just some more information here as we dwindle down that tomorrow we continue with short stories. So we want to see all of you again and more tomorrow. A very captivating workshop, well presented, great workshop. Proud of my past students. That's Mr. Record. Thank you all from Belize, very engaging. Hours flew by, really, yes. Very formative, thank you so very much. Yes, amazing, 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 amazing. I can't say that, great workshop, Mavia. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end. And at this point we say, walk good and let good dope follow you. Blessings.
Thank you all. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
It was our pleasure.
Yes,
Blessings.
blessings.
Thanks to the team. Great team. God bless you all.